Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 virtual meeting of the regular Recreation and Parks Commission. Let's see. I get rusty. I don't do this often. I would like to call the meeting to order. And can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, and before I do, Chair Super, do you want to just mention about Commissioner Burling's relocation?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I had sort of blocked this out, but Commissioner Burling is ill and potentially moving, and he has stepped down from his commission position. So we have an empty spot on our commission. And we wish him much love and wishing, prayers and well wishes his way. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner McCauley.
Here.
Commissioner Varvarigos.
Here.
Commissioner Almeida. He's here. Commissioner Almeida. He's muted. Adam, you're muted.
He just disappeared.
Yeah,
He's right there. Commissioner Escontrias.
Present.
And Chair Corman Super.
here. Okay, now can I have Commissioner Varvarigos please lead us as we all stand to salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
and justice for all.
Thank you.
Excuse me, just one moment. Lori, did you call my name for roll call?
Yes, I thought we heard your response, but
Okay, it's okay.
we know you're here.
Okay, moving right along to D. Can I get a motion to approve the order of the agenda, please?
I'll give you a motion to approve the order of agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and then can I also get a motion to submit and file any blue folder items?
And Chair, there are no blue folder items tonight.
Oh, okay. And then then we will do a motion to approve, if I could get a motion then to approve the consent calendar.
I'll give you a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second? Oh, thanks. Okay, and then we are moving right along here. We need to approve the minutes from our February 10th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the February 10th, 2021 minutes?
I'll give you a motion to approve the 10/10/2021 minutes.
And I second that.
Okay. And then we are moving to H1 or H, public participation in non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered under this section. Do we have any public participation items?
Laura, do we have anything?
Yes, we do. We have Barbara Epstein. I'm not sure how to turn off her audio. Sorry about that.
Laura, as you figure that out, go ahead and read an e-comment if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
while you work with Ms. Epstein. This is an e-comment from Warren Chun. And it's, Dear Redondo Beach staff and commissioners, thank you for your care for our park. I have been a resident on the 2700 block of Fisk Lane since 2011. I've attached a 3-page link to give you the rich history of Franklin Park as it was designed by the residents, making it unique. When the residents met in 1989, it was the desire, and I believe still the desire, no shrubs, no organized play areas, no ball field lights, keeping the basketball to north-south direction. Please keep the park as is. In particular, please no pickleball courts or skate park. And to let you know that this is accessible when you go into the agenda, it has the agenda packet, and then at the very end has e-comment. So if you would like to access Warren's link, you will be able to do so. All right. Thank you.
Barbara, can you please unmute yourself?
Laura, do you only have one person to speak?
Yes.
If it's okay with Chair Super, we could always come back.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Is that okay? Just let us know when you're.
Yes, I will. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. All right.
Sorry, I'm muted. Do we have any other e-comments or public comments?
No, we do not. We're just waiting for Ms. Epstein
Okay, so
to join us when they have everything figured out.
okay, so then why don't we go ahead and move along, and then they can recircle back.
Perfect.
Okay, do we have any? Do we need to focus on I or J? Or sorry, I.
No, there are no items continued from previous agenda.
Okay, so then let's move along to item J. 1, traffic concerns at Alta Vista Park.
Yes, thank you. At the last February meeting, Macaulay brought up concerns that he had, and also has heard from other members of the community about speeding cars on Julia driving through Alta Vista Park. And I think other commissioners also had that concern. And so the group decided to ask to have this item agendized for today. Just to remind everyone that Julia is a public street. It is currently marked as 15 miles per hour, and any proposed changes to the street would need to go to the Public Works Commission. Tonight, we do have 2 members here to talk to you about this issue. We have Ted Simon, who's our Public Works Director, and we have Scott Martin from the Police Department, who's acting traffic sergeant. So if you want to go ahead and start the discussion, they are available for input.
And Lori, maybe before you start the discussion, you did a great job with the introduction, by the way, of the street. When you brought the concerns to our attention back in February, we looked at the location. In all honesty, I've always thought of it as a driveway for a park. I've never thought of it as a street until we confirmed that it is a public street, and as such, it's got to be addressed as a public roadway. And typically on a local residential street, it is 25 miles an hour. That's what the vehicle code defaults the speed to. This location, because of its proximity to the school, the park, and the kids that are out in the fields, it has been posted to 15 miles an hour. Part of our investigation is I also want to confirm from the police department that that is enforceable with LiDAR and radar equipment, because whenever we deviate from a standard CVC speed limit posting, we have to make sure that we have the right tools available for our police department to do their enforcement the correct way. So we will be conducting an investigation based on the concerns that you've voiced, and we'll also be working in partnership with the police department, again, as our enforcement arm that helps in that ability to maintain and control traffic. So for our engineers, they'll be doing some data collection. They'll be doing some speed surveys out there. Obviously some observations. The street itself, as Lori mentioned, is a cul-de-sac, and therefore it is predominantly serving the park. No other functions other than park functions themselves. So it is our residents that are basically utilizing the park that are either speeding or have a perception of speeding, etc. And that's what our data collection will also confirm. And we will bring this concern to the Public Works Commission. I think, like you, we're meeting every other month. So by the time we go through the data collection and the analysis, we'll be coming to the commission in August for that report. And we will confirm and let Lori know so that if any of you are interested in attending the Public Works Commission meeting, then we'll send out that invitation, or at least make you aware that it's confirmed for that particular day. And I stand by for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. All right, well, do we have any questions or, anything that any commissioners want to bring up at this time?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Escontrias, let me bring this.
I'm kind of curious that if it is a public roadway and there are signs already posted, that somehow it takes a study to do a study to figure out a study how to enforce a basic California vehicle code law. My concern would be is that once the city's on notice that there's an issue, well, two sides actually. Once the city's on notice that there's an issue concerning speeding, that that we can enforce laws to that. Are we going to wait till somebody gets hurt and killed, and now suddenly it's going to be, well, we were studying this. The second part I would ask is that whoever was concerned about that possibly go back to them to ensure that they are aware that to the people in the area that if it does come to enforcement, that there is going to be enforcement if that's what it comes to. Because what's more than likely going to happen is that the people who are going to get tickets, if that's what they choose to do, are more than likely the people who live there. And then now suddenly they're going to come back and say, well, now you're being a little bit overzealous when the police are just doing their job. And I know it's a catch-22 for the police officers because if they'll be directed to go out there. So it's actually a two-sided on that.
Maybe I'll address the first part and ask Sergeant Martin to maybe contribute on the second part. Just so you're aware, we get concerns about speeding on practically every roadway. That's not something unique. It's not something new. There are laws out there, as you mentioned. The vehicle code has laws, and the laws are not just on posted speed limits. There are laws on what it is safe for a driver to drive in a particular area at a particular time. Those are very enforceable by our police department. The fact that a driver chooses to speed is not necessarily an issue that becomes a concern for us, that we are negligent in doing something. That's the driver's choice. That is not necessarily something that either the city or anyone else is forcing the driver to drive in that erratic behavior. And I think it's at the discretion of the police officer at that point that's present to make that determination and assessment. The study isn't to say, why do we have 15 miles an hour? All I said was, whenever we get a complaint or a concern that's voiced and brought forward to the engineering team, we have to go through an assessment to confirm what the data is basically showing us. And that is done through data collection. We'll go through data collection for speeds, volumes, we'll do monitoring out in the field. And like I said, we work in partnership with our police department. Part of this assessment is working with the police department to hear what they have observed as prior concerns, which they can shed a lot of light from the enforcement perspective component of it. It's a partnership. We're here to help it. And like I said, the data collection and the analysis is to confirm or identify what the real issues are, and then that's what gets vetted through the Public Works Commission at that point.
Okay, but my question would be this then, is if a person is making a complaint or issues a concern about that, I would put it to you this way. If you lived on that street and you had a small child, how would you feel if the city had to kind of wait a little bit and study it to determine whether or not they should enforce the law? That's my concern, is that this person came forward asking the city to do a fiduciary responsibility of enforcement, brought it to our attention. And I believe we have a fiduciary responsibility to immediately go out there and do that. Now, officers do have a discretion.
Commissioner Escantrillas, maybe let me interrupt you for a second there. I think the issues of analysis is different than enforcement, and maybe I'll let Sergeant Martin speak to the enforcement component of it. It is something that they do, and it isn't something that waits for an analysis. That's in their purviews today, and that's part of the partnership that we work in.
Okay, so, but my question is this, aside from that as well, generally speaking, the enforcement of traffic laws generally is discretionary unless the department's policy is directed patrol, in which there is no discretion because the supervisor can direct an officer to do that. And generally that's done based on complaints from the community. That's all. That's also kind of another portion to that. But my question would be, has the police department been out there for either directed patrol or for enhanced enforcement so that we can at least initially address the issue for these residents in that area?
Why don't we let Sergeant Martin take over that? Is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So we have not had a directed enforcement detail, at least since I've been in the unit for the last 5 months, 6 months, at that specific area. As far as I'm just not aware of one. However, when I was a motor, the areas that I focused in on was running the stop sign at Julia and Nob Hill. As far as speed, this is the first it's being brought to my attention as it being problematic. I have to back up what Ted is saying. There's tools that we can use for enforcement, but it has to be backed up by data in order to use LiDAR, radar. Otherwise, we can't use those tools in a court to cite somebody for speed. Now, because of that street and the size of it, in order to pace somebody using a vehicle, it's just not pragmatic to do that. So I could visually look at something, and I've been trained, and most of us have been trained in the unit to determine speed, but still I can't write a ticket based on a visual estimation. I have to use tools that must be backed up by data that's given to me by the engineers, which include road surveys when I have to testify in court if somebody decides to contest the ticket. The mere presence of us there will be a traffic calming. I think I just need to do more research as to when the times are. The data will back up the complaints, but there's things that we could do immediately, which again, it would be just our mere presence there. We could put up our traffic signs, which measure speed and and advertise to the driver how fast you're going. That's one of the calming devices that we use, but it's not as black and white enforcing speed as you would think. There's factors that have to play in for it to be proven in a court of law if it's contested.
Yeah, thank you. I'm well aware of that. As far as in pacing, generally is not going to occur there because you need quite a lot more distance in that. But I think what can be important is that the community be aware that any type of any enforcement is better than no enforcement. I understand that, but the mere presence I think would hopefully calm the concerns of the community, and until anything else that can be done, at least now they know that someone is listening to them, and that they're willing to go out there. Again, even if you sat out there, put a motor out there on the corner for a little bit, or again, the signs, it's proactive on the city. And I think that hopefully kind of mitigates it for a bit. And then if later on something else occurs, or rather the studies or whatever, surveys or whatever, do show that. But again, it's probably not just speed. It's probably, anything else that's out there. But I think the most important part is that this community member see that people are stepping up when they have a concern, and that it's fairly timely, if you will. That's all.
No, and I agree with that 100%. I now that I'm being made aware of that stretch of area, I'll have our guys on it. I'll create a traffic hotline complaint, and we'll put some time into it, so that the person who is concerned with it knows that we're listening to them, and that we're going to do something about it. So
yeah, the only downside is normally the ones that you catch are the ones who live there, and now if they get a ticket, now suddenly they're complaining that they're getting tickets now, and you guys can't win on this at all. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner McCauley has had his hand up for a while, so I'd like to call on him, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Super, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. I do appreciate your time. This is a pretty important issue for where I live. I live right near the park, so I'm very familiar with the street we're talking about. And the first thing I would say is it's not a regular street. It's kind of unfortunate to hear that as the city classifies it as a regular street. It is a dead end in a park. Not too many regular streets have small children going back and forth, between the hours of 3 and say 7 at night regularly, or on the weekends. So I would hope that I welcome the study. I think that's great. I know I'm very familiar with getting speed bumps and speed reduction measures in the city, how it works. You do the study. What I would ask for is for the study, if we could have a different threshold for this particular street, because I know like with each street, there's a mile per hour or a volume that is kind of part of the study from what I recall. And I would say, looking at this unique type of stretch of road, that maybe for this particular study, the data, we need to be a little more flexible with that data to come to the outcomes that are going to be most helpful for the community. I do know, in being at the park for many years, working with Redondo Sunset and AYSO, that numerous parents have recognized the fear of a child getting hit by a car in that stretch of roadway. That is the reason why we're having this discussion. And many parents have never officially complained about that over the years. And so we do have documentation recently of actual concerns from the community, from the leagues as well, which is the why we're looking into this. I do agree with Commissioner Escontreras that we do, as a city entity, we do have to worry about liability. Now being known and aware of this issue, I would just say, regardless of the data, that it may not fit the criteria. I'm a little fearful that, I know on a street it may need to be 30 miles an hour or whatever the speed is. The speed limit at 15, there will be, I'm certain, when we look at the data, very high speeds on occasion, for sure. I just think that we need to be more concerned with the reality of that the children present is a bigger concern. And I welcome the enforcement side of it as well. I think, the one idea I like is if we have the speed light that tells you your speed, I think that would be helpful to educate people. I think if we could rotate that, and get some time where it's at the park. But I will say, as a parent of children that went to Alta Vista and crossing over from Prospect to the school side, even at the light, the drivers in that area, even though it's not this street, tend to, when police enforcement is around, everybody's really good. And then police enforcement isn't always around, which, is reality. And so the park is primarily used, from 3 o'clock to about 7 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and then pretty much all weekend in the spring, pretty much all year. I mean, outside of COVID for the most part. And so I think that the concerns or the recommendations from the people that I've talked to are that, people are asking for speed cushions to be installed. And I know that it is the end result, and that takes time to get to that. We have to do the study. We have to look at the data. And I welcome to see what the data is. I do know for a fact there is a concern there. And anything that we can do to mitigate and reduce any chance of any potential accident, I'm all for. So that's my 2 cents. I do appreciate you guys being here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll go ahead and chime in on this, and then I see Commissioner Arata has her hand up. I'm probably there. Both my boys play at Redondo Sunset, so I'm probably there Tuesday through Sunday between these hours that we're discussing. And I think the main issue is that Julia is treated like a farmer's market street by the people that are there. So it's treated by pedestrians as if the street were almost shut down to traffic, because it has that feel to it with gameplay happening on both sides of the street, with snack bar and such on one side of the street and fields on the other side of the street. And the through traffic has to be, parents and staff members of AYSO, Redondo Sunset, people going perhaps to the community center there, the tennis courts. So because it's a cul-de-sac, right? So, and there's no houses there. So it has to be some of the people that are speeding have to be the people that are using the park. And so I'm wondering, in addition to doing the study and everything that needs to be done to, lead to enforcement, if perhaps we just have various leagues, AYSO, the ones that are currently using Redondo Sunset, perhaps the school, the community center, the tennis court, send out an email to all of their patrons, just reminding them, especially post-COVID, please be very careful driving. We've had complaints about speeding cars, or just, kids that are young and unaware of their surroundings and, just hopping out into the street. I almost just think that would be just a very easy first step, or just in addition to what we're suggesting here, just because it is a very unconventional street. And the patterns are, consistent with Commissioner McCauley. Those are exactly sort of what the findings will be. Just looking at the street. Sometimes it's very quiet when there's nothing happening there, but when it's happening, and it's a lot of traffic and, kids and drivers that are both not being super aware of their surroundings, often rushing to a practice, rushing to a game, rushing to and from practice and games. So, it does seem like an accident waiting to happen. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that we haven't had an incident there yet in all these years. So that was sort of my 2 cents, is if we could, and I don't know exactly how to do that, maybe as a commission, we reach out, or we appoint someone to reach out to the leagues. I don't know exactly.
Super. Community Services works with all of the different leagues because they obviously need to have permits to use the fields. Community Services has staff and manages the tennis courts and the community. We're always out there providing different messages in different forms, social media.
Right. I mean, I know.
So we'll be able to remind people, and it's a very timely message, right? We're starting to emerge from COVID, more activities. It's just a natural message.
And I think that would just be good in the interim until we can get all the rest of this done.
Chairperson Coleman, super. I'll just add to that. That's a brilliant idea, because education is actually the third E that we use. in addressing such things. We say it's education, engineering, and enforcement. And what you just mentioned is the education. It's a reminder to all the users of the park that this, and you're right, they're all users of the park, that this is a area with limited speeds and it's got a lot of children, and therefore please, be mindful and remind yourself to take the foot off the gas and slow down. That's
Right.
a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you. One thing, I'm sorry, Commissioner Arata, I'm getting a text from Barbara Epstein.
All night.
And she doesn't have audio ability. She can't unmute herself.
Right. We've been communicating via email, and she's planning to stay for the meeting. So as soon as we're done with this item, we did
Okay.
to unmute. So
I know
let her
Barbara,
in.
and I want to make sure she's happy. So,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You're touching base.
So Commissioner Arata, sorry about that.
Hello, good evening. I did want to say that I really like the idea of the light. They have one of those on Prospects, or not the light, the number that flashes. And I was just hoping if you could just shed a little more light and provide a bit more information on how you do the study and how you collect the data to determine what you feel might be suitable for any proposed or recommended changes.
Sure. And again, this not being a normal street, this is a particular use location. Hearing about the time that this is predominantly used, and as Lori mentioned, and all of you've mentioned, we're coming out of the pandemic. Things are starting to reopen. Therefore, we're going to start to see some of that data. We have multiple tools and pieces of equipment. One of them is what Sergeant Martin had basically said, the trailer that the PD uses. It actually has the ability to record speeds. But because it's a police department trailer and it tells you what your speed should be or what your speed is, it'll collect the data. It gives us information, but we don't use that information as information to base our study on. We have what we call a self-stat, an inconspicuous basically machine that's going to be doing that data collection. It's going to be recording the speeds. It's going to record the volumes of the vehicles. This being a special street, it is not a normal street that has back and forth traffic. Volume is not going to be as much of an issue as it is going to be the speeds and the time of day. That helps us in multiple ways. It helps us analytically to better understand what the speed conditions look like, but it also helps us in our communication with our police department. If we're finding, the peak of the volume and the speeds is occurring between 3 and 4 o'clock as an example, then they know what times of the day that they may be targeting some of their enforcement. It helps them on their end. It helps us with our data collection. If the data comes back and it's showing us that the speeds on the street are essentially 25 miles an hour, on that particular street, it really does look like a parking lot. It does not look and feel like a normal street. It has angled parking. It's got a lot of pedestrians, children, adults, you name it, that are going back and forth on it. That 15 miles an hour speed limit that's there, if that's enforceable, and that's just my part to confirm, it could be a quick answer from my traffic engineer to tell me, yes, it is very much enforceable. The perception when you're standing on the street and a driver drives at 25 miles an hour, it feels like they're flying, which I'm not debating whether they're doing 25 or 35 or anything else. But, that's what also helps us to better understand what are some of the tools that we're going to need. Speed cushions are a great traffic calming tool. They work well on a street that has parallel parking. In this particular location, we have angled parking, and that angled parking sticks out quite a bit. What we can't do is typically we can't put a speed cushion on an angled parking space because it creates an issue for the users of that parking space and may be a liability for us that it is not ADA compliant as they come in and out of their vehicle, etc. And if there aren't cars parked in a location where the speed cushion is, the answer is going to be they're going to drive right around that speed cushion. And that's going to be part of the assessment that we do. When Lori first brought this to my attention, I thought, oh, this is easy. It's a parking lot. We can put in speed bumps, and the speed bumps are like the ones in the supermarket parking lots. They don't need an analysis. But once we confirm it's a public street, we've got to treat it in the methods that we have to address the public streets. And those locations, those tiny little high speed bumps that they use in the supermarket parking lots, they cannot be used on a public street. And that's why we have to resort to the other methods.
Okay, thank you. So if, for example, once you do the study and with all these just off the cuff, what would you say could be possibly the proposed changes?
Well, I know one of the things we've looked at in the past is to put in, I don't call them a choker or a chicane, but we've got tools where we can extend the actual curb area. There is right now what we would call a speed table, which is really an elevated crosswalk. If you remember, sort of mid-span on the street, that could be a location where we put a bulb out. The bulb out will extend out to the end of the parking spaces. It'll actually remove 1 or 2 parking spaces when it does so, but it extends, and that does 2 things. It shortens the travel path for the pedestrians, right? Mm-hmm. It also allows us to put speed cushions either before or after that, where we don't have a parked vehicle right in that particular location to worry about the parking lane, that part of it. That could be a method that we could, or a tool that we could apply out there. But again, it's a long street, and we can't do these bulb outs at multiple locations because now it starts to create the reduction in the parking. And because it's a wide open park, you know what happens? Human nature is I'm going to take the shortest path. So the fact that there may be a marked crosswalk is not going to necessarily direct the pedestrians to go there. And that's what also makes it challenging in controlling the vehicles and the pedestrian traffic, because there are no places for us to funnel and concentrate that pedestrian traffic. But I think that is one of the tools that we could be looking at, a bulb out with speed cushions on either side of it, maybe even a couple of them, but they have to be strategically placed. And unlike a normal residential street where we have to worry about the adjacent property owner, well, in this case, it's us and the school district, and I don't think either of us is going to have an issue with installation of such devices.
Sure. And how long is this study?
The study is going to take some time, and it's not just the study component. It's what we also have in the queue for other traffic analysis.
Okay.
So if I had nothing else, no, it'd be a no-brainer. We could get something to the commission at their subsequent meeting, but we do have other analysis there. And that's why we've said that we'll take it to the commission meeting in August, now that we're on that bi-monthly meeting schedule.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Commissioner Almeida.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had a little computer issue there, so I might have missed a little bit of the communication here, but from what I did catch, I'm pretty familiar with the park. I've spent a lot of time there in the last 10 years or so with my kids playing soccer and softball there. Has anybody talked about just putting a stop sign where that raised platform is? One on either side? Because honestly, I've never seen the parents of the kids actually be the ones speeding through there. Everything that I've seen has to do with the people that are hurrying to get to the end of the parking lot and to play tennis. And they're jamming through there, and they're not concerned about kids. They're concerned about getting to the tennis match. So if there's something obvious in the middle, not just the platform, but if they actually have to stop their car in the middle of that street, right where the little snack bar is, I think that would eliminate most of the concerns about speeding. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Does anyone want to comment on that one? I know stop signs are tough.
It's not that they're tough. They're not a speed control device. I can tell you that. And Sergeant Martin can tell you that the compliance with stop signs, especially at locations where they may not be warranted, becomes very limited, and it becomes very challenging. And, you know, we don't want to put them out there for decoration. That in itself sometimes does create a liability from our perspective, because the pedestrian or someone else that may be wanting to cross there may think that the driver is going to stop. But we know there's no cross traffic. There's no vehicular traffic that's going back and forth. And if they're not paying attention to the stop sign, it may have an adverse effect by creating an insecurity rather than security for anybody at that.
Yeah, I have to concur. I think a stop sign there would give pedestrians a false sense of security that drivers would actually pay attention. And I just find that drivers are more distracted probably now than they've ever been. And that a stop sign there that they're not even used to, because most of the people that are going to be coming in and out of that area live in the area, and they're just not going to be used to having a fresh stop sign there. And I would hate to give pedestrians a false sense of security. I was thinking, along the educational lines, I'm not familiar if there's any social media groups that are kind of centralized into that area, but maybe even adding a social media campaign that we partner with our community-based officer department, and just continue to try to get the word out that be mindful of your speed and pedestrian traffic.
Let's see here. Commissioner McCauley has a raised hand.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. We can easily discuss with the leagues to get the word out. I do think Commissioner Almeida has a very good point, though. Some of the audience that we want to hear that message won't get it through them, because a lot of it, I do agree with Adam that it does appear that people are racing to get to the tennis courts. In many instances, that has been well observed by us. I will say that also, if possible, you mentioned earlier about the street is classified as a street, and is there any way that the street could be classified not as a public roadway? Is that an easier route, or is that a more difficult route? Number one. Number two, I understand with the stop sign. I think that was a great idea, but that makes a lot of sense, what you guys have just said. The bulb outs definitely, I think, are a very positive thing to consider as well, especially at that location, right by the snack bar, at least, maybe in another area as well. But I'm just curious to the street itself. Is there, and one other point. So for the street, is it possible to reclassify it so it's a park, not a public roadway? And number two, is there any way, I forget number two, but if you can answer that question right there.
I can answer number one for you, Commissioner McCauley. Yeah, we thought about that idea as well. Right. The street, if we were to vacate it, that's what we call it, it's a vacation. It reverts back to the adjacent property owners if it's not owned in fee by the city. And the two property owners are the city with the park on the west side, the school district with their portion of it on the east side. We can actually lose control of the parking and the access and everything else on the street if we were to declassify it. I think it's something that we can have in our hip pocket, that if something needed to be done in the future to declassify the street, it's something to consider. I don't think it's something that we would propose right now. It does have to go through a lengthy process, just so you understand. It's probably more complex than it is to go through the engineering analysis to bring that to the city council or to the traffic commission first. But yes, it is called a vacation of a roadway. It is something that we contemplated, but because of the adjacent property ownership, it may create other complexities that we'd rather not be considering at this point.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rada, is your hand still up from before, or did you want to speak again?
No, but I was just thinking of a comment. Like, I'm sure that after we get the studies, then they're going to be able to propose some alternatives or solutions once that study is completed. I think it would be a lot more information to be able to make the decision of what they're going to do. And I'll take my hand down.
I remember my other point.
Oh, okay. Commissioner McCauley.
Just real fast. So it would go to the Public Works Commission. They would be the deciding body on this. Is that correct?
They're an advisory body to the city council. So let's assume that at the commission level, we see the bulb outs and the speed cushions are the solution that the commission supports. Then it will actually go to the city council for their blessing of the traffic control device installation and the funding of that, the appropriation of funding in order to do that installation. But it'll eventually make its way to the city council.
Okay, thank you.
So then it's sort of my job then to ask what shall we do here then as far as we're concerned? Do we need to now make a motion to the study's already being done? That's already being done. So
Right.
what's our next step here?
For you as a commission, there's nothing further for you to do. You've brought this to our attention. We've heard you. We've recorded it. I've got my traffic engineering team working on this, and it's in their queue of things to do. The police department is here. They've heard you, and I'll let Sergeant Martin speak more about it. But from our perspective, we've received your input. And like I said before, once we confirm that it's making it to the August Public Works Commission meeting, we will inform Lori or whomever your next community services director is going to be, so that they can bring you the confirmation that it's going to the Public Works Commission. And whether we're back in person or it's virtual, you'll have access to attend the commission meeting there and participate as a commission or as an individual resident.
I think we have one more hand from Commissioner Varvarigos.
Oh, no questions. I just wanted to say thank you, Ted, for the presentation, and appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Thank you, Jacob.
The comments from everybody else. I actually learned a lot. I don't know that much about this kind of stuff, and so it was helpful to hear everybody's commentary. Thank you.
Okay.
I do just have one more comment, if possible.
Oh yeah, Commissioner Arata.
I really like the flashing sign that you have on Prospect with the numbers, and slow down. How effective are those? And would that be effective, do you think, in an area like that? And would there be a place for it?
It could be. That could also be one of the tools that gets recommended for consideration by the commission. Those are expensive because they're solar powered, but they are speed feedback signs. We think they're pretty effective. I think from an enforcement, maybe Sergeant Martin can speak more about how effective they are. We feel that they work well as a reminder to the drivers, because most of the time, especially with the newer vehicles, they're quieter, they're smoother. You don't know that you're doing 35 or 40 miles an hour. And therefore that sign, if you're looking forward, will be a great reminder that says, oh, take your foot off the gas pedal, let it coast or let it slow down.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That really does create awareness right when you're doing it. I mean, you can put a sign and that's great, and it does create awareness through education. But I do like that flashing sign on it is on Prospect, right in front of the park. And it's just fantastic. I think that would be great. So thank you.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions on this, or any of our speakers want to add anything else?
From the police perspective, I'll address this immediately tomorrow with my team. And the three tools I can think of off the top of my head that can be utilized immediately is visibility, enforcement, and usage of the sign. So I will get on that immediately tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
I've got nothing further other than thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we'll go ahead and get it addressed.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ted. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Chair Super, before we move on, it's time to bring our guest, Ms. Epstein, if that's all right with you.
Yes, let's do it.
Ms. Epstein.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much for your patience.
Oh, I was going to come anyway. I like coming to Recreation and Parks. The people here that know me know I'm a big parks fan. I'm a board member of South Bay Parkland Conservancy and Redondo Beach Community Gardens Committee. Parks are, to me, the most important thing. So I'm happy to be here. And I want to thank you all for everything that you do and the time that you put in. The reason I wanted to speak tonight was Monday night we had our HOA meeting for our condominium complex, which is right next to Zuliger Park. And there was a lot of discussion about the dogs in the park policy that our city adopted. within the last year or so. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that there are some significant problems with the dog owners' usage of the park. We've had several incidences, and one of my neighbors, an elderly lady, was walking her dog, and dogs off the leash, the big dogs came and I think they either made her fall, they pushed her off balance, they attacked her little dog. And we've had some occurrences like this. And the reason I'm reporting it is just in case it comes back for your attention in the future. I wanted you to know that Zuliger Park is having problems, and some of the neighbors have already contacted the city council with a letter with great detail describing the problems. And I just wanted you to know about it. I'm not asking you to do anything about it right now, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. And I want to thank you all again. And I'm going to hang on for a while and just listen in, and thanks for all you do. Oh, you know what I'd like? I haven't talked to our board at South Bay Parkland Conservancy, but my wish is when things open up all the way and the parks are fully open for events, I would love to have a celebration with your commission and with all of us that use the parks, and especially Wilderness Park has been going through quite an effort through South Bay Parkland Conservancy to restore the park and do the native habitat restoration and things like that. And I just feel like celebrating. So I hope within the next 6 months or so, we can plan something together. And so I'll talk to the board. I haven't had their permission to even say this. So it's something to think about. So thanks again.
Thank you, Barb. Okay. So moving on to, I believe we're now on J2. So J2 is the possible renaming of the Flagler and Ripley Parkette.
Yes. So tonight we have another guest. We have the chair of the Historical Commission, Ron Morocco, and he is actually the next two items are from Chair Morocco. Ron, are you here? He was here earlier.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Hello, good evening. So the first item is under the Historical Commission is J2. It's related to actually J3, as Chair Morocco is always on the lookout for possible mural locations. He often runs into people of the community. And at one point in time, the story of the Ito family was shared with Chair Morocco. They lived on Havemeyer Lane, and Havemeyer Lane, a long time residence. In fact, the wife, Kimmy, she lived in Redondo Beach for 99 years, and graduated from Redondo Union High. Chair Morocco. So it was a great story of a family who was very involved in the community. The children grew up here, and then during the war were interned in the Colorado River Relocation Center in Arizona. And so it's just a really heartwarming story a family who was very involved in the community and lived and made Redondo their home. So, so Chair Morocco is looking, if there's a photo in your packet of Flagler and Ripley Parquet, if you're not familiar with that location. And he is interested in or hopes to go through the process of renaming that park. And so obviously the Historical Commission supports this idea, and now it's time to talk to the Recreation and Parks Commission. So Chair Morocco, if you would like to share some additional information or your thoughts, be great.
Sure. What you will see in your packet is what I'm here today is asking for a recommendation that we as a Historical Commission already have brought this up. We have come up with a couple of names for the park. Parquet, as I was never had a name, I think, until last year, but we wanted to, our recommendations is to either call it the Ito Family Open Space or the Ito Family Parquet. They lived a block away from the park area right now. And there's a picture of the park in your packet as well. There's a little story about the family in there. And so what we're looking for is your recommendation so we can go to the council with both the Historical Commission recommendation and the Recs and Parks recommendation for the renaming. And I'm hoping that you had an opportunity to read the materials so that we can actually get that in front of the council and renamed. I will mention that this is a 3-phased process. So the first step is to get the park renamed. The second step that will be coming back to you at some point is how do we dedicate the park space to honor the family? And then I think the third and most important part is to actually have some sort of educational signage or information out there that lets the community know about the role that the Japanese internment camps had in our history and the impact on our community. This family actually ended up going to a camp called Poston in Arizona. They picked up and moved, and the family is actually detailed a lot of information about it. So we would like to at least, again, start with the naming, then move to the dedication that honors them, and then share the more full story about the internment process. North Redondo, for those of you who aren't familiar, there was a very large Japanese American community there. There's also a very large Mexican American community there. And we need to bring some of these stories out into the open so that everybody knows about them rather than just focusing on what happened in the 1800s down in South and Central Redondo. So I'm hoping that you guys, you all commissioners, and thank you for having me here, will approve a recommendation to rename the park. You can pick the names you want, but we chose the Ito Family Parquet and the Ito Family Open Spaces option. So I leave the discussion to you.
Chair Morocco, have you actually spoken with members of the Ito family?
Yes, I've been in touch with one of them. Actually, these pictures came, that this is Ms. Ito when she was younger. This is the family. They actually had another place down on Phelan and Artesia. And I find the father's story rather interesting. He was a geologist, went to Stanford University before the war, and he was in school when Herbert Hoover was president, and those who know a little bit about Stanford know that he also was a geology major. So there's a whole fascinating story there. We are trying to track down, there was a video oral history of Ms. Ito before she died, and we're trying to track that down and get a copy to the family as well.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. I've gotten to know Commissioner Morocco over the past few months, and he's done some really great work here. And so we really appreciate you coming to speak to us. I see two hands. I think it was Commissioner Arata first.
Hello, Chair Morocco. Thank you for coming to the meeting. I just have a question. So you're choosing the Flagler and the Ripley Parkettes because of the because of the location, I would say, of where they lived. And what is the history of the naming of the Flagler and the Ripley Parkettes now? I mean, I see the administrative reports, but I wasn't able to find that information.
So we always called it the Lily Parkette because we had people who lived down the street whose dog is named Lily use that as its facility, and that's how we've known it. I don't think it got a name until this commission actually started looking at places to put dogs, make them dog-friendly parks. And so it's always not had a name. There's no signage there that says anything. If you look at prior city directories, you won't find anything listed there. It shows up now as that's called the Ripley Flagler Parkette, but for the most part, it's not had anything. It's one of two really open spaces based parkettes in the city, and that's one of the important features, I think, when we get to the second and third phase, is to keep that open space feel to it. It's right next to the elementary school, so when they go to the historical museum, they walk right by that parkette.
Commissioner Maroka, are you saying that a dog was using that parkette before the pilot program began?
I'm saying that dogs went over there all the time. My dog did not go there. My dog has other favorite spots that he likes. But
Sorry, couldn't help myself. Commissioner McCauley was next.
Chair Morocco, thank you very much for taking the lead on this and your commission as well. I think this is a great idea. I've actually was kind of shocked to hear that's actually the name. That was my question, was the name of the parkette right now is just Ripley and Flagler.
Well, and it actually, there's no signage. Commissioner Morocco and I live right there. We live on the same street, bizarrely, and it's never had any signage. It doesn't have a sign with its name, and it still doesn't, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I've driven by there a million times. It's a nice little space. It's actually a pretty good size too, for a parkette. Some of the parkettes are really small. So that's interesting to hear the history of it, but for sure, this is a story that needs to be told. So I think this is really great for you to bring it to our commission, and I'll gladly support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vavarigos.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, thanks for the presentation there. I too am familiar with the parkette, and it is nice because of its linear positioning to the road. It's parallel to the road, and so it is kind of like a gallery experience. You can walk it. There's two rows of trees, and would the murals be put up along the wall? Is that the intent, that it's like a?
Okay, so we haven't gotten to J3, and I've evolved during the process. I wanted to bring somebody in from Parks and Recs, and when we get to that point, I'm going to try to get some input from somebody from your commission, trying to bring in public arts. There are multiple ways to present it without kind of taking away from the linear appearance, and it may not be the best choice. The reason I thought that would be a good park is because the kids from Jefferson Elementary are the ones who tend to go to the museum annually, and they walk right by it. And when we get to the next part, you'll see that we're trying to get as much history as we can out in the community and make it accessible. That may not be the best park. That's why I want all your participation on it, because you may say, hey, the play field over on 190th is a better location for it, or someplace by the museum is a better place for it. My concept, if I had to do it now, would be, I don't know if you're familiar with City Hall. They have some markers over there, and I wish I could have gotten some of them to look. But you can put one marker on one end that talks about the family, and a marker on the other end that talks about the internment camps. They're relatively thin and they don't take much of the profile. There are bricks along the fence over there, so you actually have to step behind there. And again, you look at the picture and it's a beautiful picture, but I think we're we're not far enough along on the historical murals without the participation from this commission as well as the Public Arts Commission. So it's wide open at this point. I'm more concerned about getting this parquet name so we can move on to getting the stories out there to the community.
Yeah, well, it does make sense to me considering how close it is to the museum right there in Dominguez Park, across the street pretty much. And like you said, if you have those historic amenities right there for people to go to, and it's easy for them to travel from place to place, you know, and to congregate these this type of parquet close to that, I think it makes a good decision. But I have no problems with the Historic Commission's recommendations to change the name, and would definitely lean on the community that is most interested in this. And so I think right now our decision is to recommend the name change. Is that right? That's kind of what we're discussing here. And so yeah, I would I'm definitely in support of that. I don't know if we're at the point to make a motion yet though, but that's all I had to say.
Let's hang on to your motion, Commissioner Rodriguez. We have a couple more hands, and then I would love for you to make a motion. Commissioner Escontrias. Oh, you're muted, Gail.
Okay, sorry. Sir, I want to thank you for your presentation tonight, and I think it's warranted and probably well overdue. But it does open another door, and this is probably more for city staff. I just went on the website for the city and kind of went through each of the different parks that are named after someone, but there's no explanation as to who or why they're named after anybody. I think it's interesting because, again, a lot more information can be placed on there as to why we're honoring people, how we're doing that, and most importantly, it's very, very interesting situations or people that we should possibly maybe even look at, and maybe for the city to, like he asked for information about each person that we name after. But I'm noticing on the sites there's no reason, rather there's no name as to why it's even have that name, and this would be, I think, one of the better avenues of putting out the information on this family and their contributions to the community, if we could put it somewhere beyond just a plaque that's going to limit the information.
Well, we could always take a look at adding information to the website or have some type of link to a historical commission site for if people are interested in receiving more in-depth information.
Please, thank you.
And I can add to it, since I've actually researched all the names of the parks as I was walking around during COVID. So I can, if there's any park you want to know a little bit about, I'm putting together some information for our commission that kind of lays out, like, for example, some of the schools that used to be there had names, and like Greg Parquet, which is close to my house, it's like I was trying to find out. So I've done the research on it. There are some resolutions in the city section. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to get that over to Commissioner Super or get it to get the work published that I've already started the research on.
Commissioner Arata.
So I have to ask, because I chaired the Historical Commission for 5 years, and I was a commissioner for 10 years on that commission. Do you have at the museum, Chair Morocco, something set up to honor this family? That's the first question. The second question is, did you get any input from the community for like nominations? Because I know that there's probably a lot of amazing people in the community that we don't know about. So I'm just wondering, how did you come across this family? And it's a great idea.
So I'll answer your first question first. We haven't been in the museum since the lockdown, and it may not be, according to Director Koike, we may not be able to get in there if we don't have a staff person to do it.
Right.
if you actually go to our last meeting, and Commissioner Director Quakey can correct me, there's been plans, and I think it even started when you were on the commission, to upgrade the museum and bring it into the 21st century with all sorts of videos and stuff. One of my committees is actually oral histories, as I've been trying to get you to do an oral history because you've been the longest serving chair of our commission. But I'm trying to get the stories. I'm trying to get the stories upgraded. There's like 70,000 people in this community. Each one has a unique story. I want to bring it to life. We were talking about, before COVID, we were talking about getting a video screen in one of the rooms so we can put loops of stories of different people. That's one of the reasons we're looking for this oral story that was done of Ms. Ito about 10 years ago. So yes, we would like to, we're going to be looking at upgrading once we can get in and see what's going on. I know you've been very helpful with trying to track down the inventory on that.
You got the inventory.
Yes, and we can't get into the computer to go see what's there. So the second question, I looked at this park that I didn't know how to name. I approached a family that's got long roots in North Redondo, and I said, wouldn't it be nice to name this after you? And they suggested the Ito family and explained why. And then as more I was researching, you have an article in the city newsletter. This was their backyard. This was their home. So it just seemed appropriate to do that. So as far as the vetting goes, all I can tell you is there's a longtime resident that have graduated from Redondo High that suggested these people. And it turns out after talking to the daughter of them, this has got history all over the place. It's got the great story of the internment camp that I don't think is being emphasized enough. And 1942, when President Roosevelt signed the general order, we could have this park dedicated in place with the narrative stuff on the 80th anniversary of that order. This is a family who actually volunteered for the internment camp because they were trying to make everybody more comfortable when they got there. But I've been finding out more about this camp as well. It's got a great story, and I think it's important for our kids, for our adults, for the community to know what the roles of the Japanese Americans were in our community and what happened to them during World War II. So all the pieces fit together really nicely.
Okay. Is the museum opening, Lori or Chair Morocco, on June 15th?
Now, I was, this is one item that I was going to include in the director's report, but it's my understanding that the museum right now only has one volunteer. And at this time, the person is not able to volunteer. So I was going to, just kind of throw it out to all the commissions that if anyone has an interest to let us know. But so the opening will depend on having a volunteer.
Well, wait, no, you said that the opening will be dependent on having a volunteer. The volunteer there has to be staff.
There has to be someone in there, yes. And there's no staff available, so.
Right, so right now the issue is staff timing, and the volunteer, you can probably get those, but it's just an issue of staff, would you say?
You may remember the docent program started when you were probably on the commission, and it ended up moving away from volunteers because all the commissioners on the Historic Commission are supposed to be volunteers at the museum, to an actual dedicated person. And what you'll hear about in the next part of the presentation, why we need to do some other things to bring the history outside and make it more accessible.
So once you get that established and the museum is open, do you plan on making a dedication or something for them inside the museum?
We have to get the city to sign off on that's what they want to do. And as I said, this is a phase. The first phase is getting the park named. The second phase is what's the appropriate dedication for it. I mean, if you look at Andrews Parkhead, it's just a plaque in the ground that's kind of now all rusted up. I don't think that's the appropriate way of doing it. I think it needs to be something that tells the story. And I think the more information we can put in the story, the better it's going to be. And I may not be, or anybody on my commission may not be the best person to tell the story. And I'm actually exploring finding better qualified people to write the story that have more knowledge and can be more sensitive to getting that story out there.
I guess that let me reiterate the question. I apologize. Are you going to be putting something inside the museum, not necessarily at the parks or a parkette, but are you going to have something that's going to be like, you know, a dedicated little area in the museum, like you can do that for
Yes.
the EDOs?
I have a commission, then we meet as a commission as a whole when it comes to museum upgrades. We have to get back in there and look at it. And one of the things, if you're welcome to come watch our commission meeting, you'll see that one of the things we want to do is how to preserve the records more and finding some climate control.
No, I've been reading it. I do see what you're doing, and that's great.
Yeah, so if you look at the plans for what this concept that this people that we paid $8,500 to do it, you'll see that it's completely different than what Howard Eller, who actually was on our commission, proposed. And we have to deal with flow, we have to deal with concept, and that's going to be a much longer discussion. That's going to, hopefully when we start meeting once a month, we can actually get our hands on that a lot more. But it's up in the air as far as I go. It's an idea that we can, when we get to that second phase, we can go deal with.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like to make a motion to receive and file, provide a recommendation to City Council regarding the possible renaming of the Flagler and Ripley Parkette.
And then I'm not allowed to make a motion, obviously, but I do have a right to an opinion. And I would like, as my opinion would be that it's not called a parkette, just because I've seen how the sausage is made in this town, and thinking about future ramifications of that we call it the Ito family open space rather than parkette is my personal preference. So I don't know if somebody wants to amend the motion to include the name or.
Can I ask you a question? Chair, what do you mean by sausage?
I just don't want to, for other reasons, I don't want to label this green space as a parkette, just in case other things come down the pipeline. I know the way City Council works, and I know all sorts of, I just would rather not, there's no description of this park anywhere as a parkette. It's not labeled as such. And so I would rather not pigeonhole it as a parkette and rather leave it as an open space or a play field or something of that nature, rather than label it a parkette when it doesn't officially have that name.
Don't they call it a parkette because of the size of it, and that's why they're calling it a parkette rather than a park? I believe that's how they do the parks and the parkettes, is by the size. And so they call it a parkette because of the size only. Am I incorrect, or anybody that knows?
Honestly, I don't think it's an issue right now. The motion is to rename the Flagler and Ripley Parkette. We're not giving a name to the new name. We're just making a motion to rename the existing parkette. And so I think your comments, Kate, would be written and shared, but they don't need to necessarily be included in the motion.
Okay, I just think that Chair Morocco had kind of asked us to help out with that part as well. I think that commission, the historical commission, wanted our opinion on it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood.
So I will defer to Director Koike, but when we had this come up at our commission meeting, she said that we should come up with a couple of names, and then you guys can come up with names, the same or different ones, and then when it's presented to the council, they can accept the recommendations of the commissions, or they can pick something else as far as that goes. As far as parquet versus open space, you may notice this is one of the few non-parks that doesn't have a fence around it, and I think that's what makes it very charming, is it doesn't have a fence, and when you start getting into parquets, you start getting fences,
Right.
except for like Andrews and stuff like that.
Right. Exactly.
So I defer to Director Koike with what she needs.
No, you're correct. You know, you can envision with the motion to be able to say, based on the feedback from both commissions, this is our preferred name or our favorite name, Ito Family Open Space, and then maybe have some other names as well that you would approve or that you like, just to be able to provide some options. But you can.
So, Lori, would we maybe email those as a commission to you if we had suggestions on the name, or would we send those to Kate, maybe or somebody in the commission to?
Do that. You could always share it with me, and there's nothing wrong with sharing it with the group. Well, I could email it to the group as long as you don't communicate with each other, and then of course I'm connected with the historical commission, so they would be interested as well.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely make a suggestion right now, but I don't know how many people have thought through it enough to throw something out on the table. Sure. So we could.
Yeah. If something comes to mind later on, please do feel free to email me.
I have a quick question on that.
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Yeah. What designations of spaces are there in the city? I mean, the technical and the legal designations, parks, parquets, open space. Is there a definition anywhere? Because you could sit there and not call it a parquet, but then say some issue comes up later on, and then the city comes up and says, well, that is actually a parquet. You change the name, you can call it whatever, but it's still a parquet. So my curiosity is that, is there a designation as open space? Is there, and in fact, does it even allow that to occur?
I do not know the background. I
mean, that would be something I think hopefully we could research.
I could take a look at it. We could you could set a precedence by calling it something else and making it another designation, maybe even a lower than a parquet, so then it doesn't fall within the purview as a parquet, and possibly, if necessary, to be treated differently, if you will, if necessary. Because I understand her concerns.
Yeah, Chair Morocco.
So the parks in the city, if you go to your websites on the parks and Recs and Parks, you'll see that the larger things like Anderson and Perry and Alta Vista are all designated as parks, and so is Wilderness. This is the same size, 0.36 acres as all the parquets. It's designated on the inventory as green space. It's not called open. It's called green space. Ultimately, the council is going to pick whatever they want, and they're going to take input from the public. I can even read you what we voted on in the historical commission, but ultimately the point is to get this to the council so that they can take things into consideration and ultimately have a vote on it. And if you have additional suggestions or names, it's one of those things that the council is going to be looking to. Staff will be providing recommendations to the council, and the more choices you give the council, I think the better it is as well. So maybe just go with the proposal. If you have a name that you want to use as a whole placeholder, great. If not, just at least make the recommendation so the council can look at it and then submit your suggestions.
Yeah, I just my concern is twofold. My first concern was that I want to make sure that we're doing, Chair Morocco, what you have asked of us. So you started out saying what you needed from us, and your first thing was the renaming, and then you talked about us providing suggestions for actual names, and then your second part was for us to brainstorm ways, to come up with a way to to honor the dedication. So I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and actually doing what you are requesting of us.
That's fair. All I'm asking is that because again, this is what Director Koike said, and it's in your papers over here. You're on page 19. A joint recommendation from both commissions will be presented to the council, and it's just a potential renaming. So, what it sounds like, you're in agreement that it should be renamed. You're in agreement that it probably should be named after the Ito family, and it's just a question of how you classify what the green space that's called now green space is called at the end of the day. And I think that's ultimately the council's going to, take our recommendations and do what they want to do.
The other thing is, I will actually piggyback on what Commissioner Arata was saying. Just knowing how council might approach something like this, about sort of vetting other families, and sort of why the selection of this family. Again, I'm just doing my due diligence because I know how they work. And so I just want to make sure that we have answered that question for them in our minutes. So, let's just make sure that we've dotted our I's on this one. And I think you have, but I just, again, are there liability issues? Are there other families, community members that are going to be upset because we chose this family over a different family? And will they get angry at a council member? So I guess, Chair Morocco, have you spoken to any council members about this idea, and what was their general consensus, just out of curiosity?
So I'm in District 3, and I first broached this topic with my councilman, who thought it was a good idea. And he then reached out to staff to figure out what the protocols are on it. To me, I've actually researched resolutions on things like this, and sometimes they involve recs and parks, and sometimes they don't involve recs and parks. They do what they want to do. So my councilman went to Director Koike, who said, okay, let's get this process started, and we need... to me, it's sufficient that the Historical Commission says we want it, but it makes sense, since you're in your bailiwick of what you do, that we should get your recommendation as well. So again, I'm deferring to Director Koike, but I can tell you my councilman was on board with it, at least when he went to Director Koike to find out how to do it. I haven't actually expanded out. I'm planning on going to the next council meeting anyway, so this will be one of the things that will get brought up. And again, I'll have to defer to Director Koike and how she's going to be presenting it as a resolution to the council.
Well, first of all, it makes sense that both commissions are involved. If Chair Morocco were to take this item to council through with staff, the first question would be, well, have you, talked to the Recreation and Parks Commission? So I think early on we knew that having it be a joint recommendation would be the best route to council.
Okay, that's fine. I just know that some things that seem the least controversial sometimes become controversial. So. Okay, so I guess we'll just leave it. We'll let perhaps Commissioner Rodriguez can make his motion again, and if somebody would like to second that, we can just proceed.
I just had a little comment. I really did want to focus on perhaps getting some community input on the name of that, and I was considering the fact that somebody might say, well, I've lived here 120 years. I mean, not, so I'm just wondering if they can get some more input or feedback in regards to the community and the naming and the election of that name.
Well, you do have Ms. Epstein on the phone.
What?
I said you do have Ms. Epstein on the phone. It was published in our agenda packet. It's been out there as our new next agenda packet. It's in your agenda packet. Public has an opportunity to see it. I don't know, unless it actually gets to the council floor, then that's probably where most people are going to see it.
Have you gotten any feedback on it?
Other than from the family, no.
Okay.
Because nobody knows it is Flagler and Ripley anyway.
I would almost say, do we even have to call it a renaming? Because it doesn't seem like Flagler and Ripley,
It's got a name.
right? We're just naming an open space. So
That's actually an excellent point. It's never really been named, only informally. So that is accurate, I believe.
So maybe we tailor the motion to kind of specify the Parks and Rec Commission recommends to the City Council to name the area in question in honor of the Ito family, and then let them decide whatever the name will be.
I second that motion.
Okay.
All right, Chair, would you like me to do a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Barbarigos,
Aye.
Commissioner Almeida,
Aye.
Commissioner Arata,
Aye.
Commissioner Escontrias,
Aye.
and Chair Super.
Aye. Okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry to make life difficult. It's just that I want to make sure that we tend to send things along to council, and then we haven't considered all possible issues. So
It's good conversation.
yeah. Okay, so let's move to item J3, which is Chair Morocco again.
This is Chair
Nice.
Morocco. The Historical Commission has many different subcommittees, one of which is historical murals in parks. So again, as I mentioned, Chair Morocco is a member of that particular subcommittee. And the thought is that, the museum is open only for limited periods of time. For COVID, it's been closed for a while. Why don't we try to bring the rich history of Redondo Beach outside so that it's always available for students or residents or guests. And on that very brief intro, I will turn it over to Chair Morocco for more details.
I'm sorry that I'm taking so much time up on your agenda. It's starting to turn into like one of our commission meetings. So in your packet on page 24 is the mural subcommittee report that was put together for our February 17th meeting. And as Director Koike said, the main purpose is to get the history outdoors so that people can access it anytime they want to. This is going to be a project that is going to take a lot of time. And what I'm asking from this commission is a consensus that they want to move forward with the historic mural project. And second, that hopefully we can get a commissioner from your commission to work with our commission, as well as see if we can get somebody from public arts to combine all the pieces. You guys have the expertise on where the locations are really good. We have a little bit of the history, and the mural people, public arts knows how to put together a budget, how to find the artist, what's going to look really well. One of the concepts that we do want to include in this is a QR code that lets anybody who goes up to the mural not only see the picture, but have a greater understanding of the history, because it'll link to something, which if you look at, so that's what I want on as far as the murals go. I realize that we have to raise money to do it to start with, because you have to pay the artists for it. We have to find the right location. So I think it's going to be at least a 2-year project ultimately, and especially if we're meeting every other month. So it came up with the concept of historical lawn signs. After the campaigns, we saw lawn signs all over the place. And so my commission had commissioned me to go try to develop some prototypes. So I'm going to share with you the one that I did that's honoring the city's birthday that's coming up later this month. And for those of you have iPhones or whatever, we have QR codes down at the bottom. And if you these actually work over Zoom, so even any public member can see it, but they're linked to our historical page so you can actually get the history, and then the library has some interesting stuff out there. So what I'm hoping that you as a commission will do, and this ties in with that we don't know how the city functions on some of this stuff, but if you could, as a motion, I made two signs. One is a smaller sign. One is, I was a little ambitious, made a huge sign. So what I'm hoping that you will do is vote that you don't have any objections, because the city is going to be ultimately the one who has to figure it out, to place the larger sign in front of the Heritage Court right by the museum, so that people, when they can't get into the museum, can actually get a little flavor of the history, and they'll be able to understand that our city's birthday is coming up, and put a smaller sign in a local park or parkette for a period of 90 days. These are only meant to be temporary, and just get the concept out there, see if we get a positive response for it. So again, I'm hoping that this commission will have a vote that says they don't object to place for 90 days these lawn signs in parks or parkettes. And if you want more, the smaller signs don't cost that much, so it's not a big deal, but I only have 2 prototypes, so that's what I'm hoping that you will vote on.
Okay. I'm looking for hands here. Commissioner Rada?
I love the idea. It's fantastic. I'd love to work with you. And when you had said that for your campaign, you needed to get the money to pay the artists, what about if you had, like, the students do the art? So it'd be like student art, or there's rise ups where it wouldn't cost the commission any. I'm sure in the art community, artists that just want to get their work out there. Did you ever think about that, Chair Morocco?
I am trying to work with the Public Arts Commission, and I'm really looking at them for the artistic expertise. The muralist, I don't have a problem with actually having it as part of an education project for kids to come up with it. If you look at the list in the committee report that I provided you on page 24, it kind of gives you some suggestions. I'd love to bring out the history of the Native Americans in the community. You talked about Wilderness Park. That was a lookout spot for the community. I think there's lots of things going on in the community that we could bring out interesting stories. I'd love to be able to involve Northrop Grumman and see if they'll come up with some futuristic space ones like satellites, and they've actually provided me a picture. I'd love to have one that the kids can just look at as kind of like a reflective mirror, then say, you are part of our history. You're making the history right now. So a lot of it I want to do is more educational concepts, but I need the muralist. I'm going to look towards public arts because it's going to be in a public space.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about this topic? Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea. I appreciate you talking about it more in detail. You did mention Wilderness Park as a possible place, and I agree that there's parks like that do have a lot of history. That Wilderness Park has a lot of history that can be talked about that is hard for people to access right now, and partnering with the Public Arts Commission, I think, is really essential. They could look at different. I think there's a lot of good ideas amongst us all, and so I think this is definitely a great thing to collaborate on. Are we, Laurie? Are we possibly making a motion to form a joint committee? Is that what this is for?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chair Morocco, but I think right now, Chair Morocco is just he just wants to know that there are no objections from this commission to continue working on this idea, since it will obviously impact parks.
Okay.
I don't think it's anything specific at this time, because also it's he wants to also work with the Public Arts Commission as well. So I think
That you wanted to
take a while to develop this, but I think he just wants your support to know that this is something that you can get behind.
And I thought I also heard that they're looking for a representative from the commission. I would definitely recommend Cindy Arata if she were wanting to do that. I think she said she would be, with her background with the Historic Commission. Makes a lot of sense. I'm also interested to give any feedback as needed. Is that what you're looking for, Ron? Is a suggestion from somebody from the commission to work with you guys, or is that kind of down the road?
No. As I said when I started, the two parts with the murals. One is a consensus that you, as a commission, believe that this is a project worthwhile continuing with, and then you, as a commission, designating somebody, one of your commissioners, to work with us and hopefully with Public Arts. So we have all three commissions represented as we start planning it. That can go back. We're fortunate that all three commissions all work under the same community services director, so we at least have some continuity and a staff person that will be familiar with it as we go forward.
So do we need a motion then? I believe that's probably the easiest thing, maybe a two-part motion then. Oh, Commissioner McCauley?
Is this like forming a committee? Is that what we're talking about here? Or is it just an informal representative from each of the commissions? Lori, I think.
Chair Morrow, go ahead. What would your preference be?
I don't know if there's any structure within the bylaws of any of these to have the joint overlap of it, but I do believe that since it won't be a Brown Act violation, since there's only one person from each commission, it's going to be something that we can again do the planning and go back and get the consensus of each of our commissions. So you'd have, like, if it was Commissioner Rada, she'd come back to you and say, this is what we've discussed, and you would have your own robust discussion and we would have our discussion. Unfortunately, there's a lot of every other month. It makes it difficult to do things, but it could work. In this instance, we have 3 straight weeks of between your commission, my commission, and then Public Art. So yeah, I'm just looking for somebody to be designated that can be the responsible person to report back to you all.
So then, as far as it being, I'm just trying to figure out the language here. If it's not an official committee, then we don't need to make a motion for that. If Cindy wants to be the representative and we're all okay with that, I don't think there's a vote on that from my understanding, right? And then there is the idea of doing a motion for the signage that you want to put out the parks for 90 days. That's actually a motion of support that we could do. Is that my understanding?
That's my understanding. It's a consensus, and that's why I phrase it as a consensus. It doesn't require a formal vote. It's just that you're supporting, we're moving forward, and our commission ended up doing it unanimously, saying we agree to move forward with it on this. So it's the same thing I would expect from you, just somebody that you all agree is the main person so that the communication can happen.
Okay, so then the motion would be the Parks and Rec Commission designates Chairman Arata as the liaison between the two commissions, and we support the signage for 90 days at the locations mentioned. Would that be, can we do both in one? Is that all right?
I think you may want to do two, just because, yeah, and it's more, again, because we don't know who makes the decision to put the signs, I think it's Director Koike ultimately, but I've seen signs in the park that I kind of wonder how they got there and what the process was.
I think a lot of them are bootleg. A lot of them they just put up.
Yeah, but it's
We'll
city
have to,
property.
we'll have to check. We'll have to check.
That's why I worded it's no objection to having it up there for 90 days, so that gives Director Koike more discretion on it.
Okay, so then I can make the motion on the 90 days that the Parks and Rec Commission supports 90-day signage that the Historical Commission wishes to put up at those locations.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Can we do a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Barbarigos,
Aye.
Commissioner Almeida,
Aye.
Commissioner Arata,
Aye.
Commissioner Escontrias,
Aye.
and Chair Super.
Aye.
Oh, thank you all.
Okay. And thank you so much, Chair Morocco, for speaking to us and taking your time on this both fabulous projects.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
And good luck as well. I hope it works out.
yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Chair Morocco. Have a nice evening. I'll see you next week.
I got the agenda already.
Next Wednesday's our turn. Okay. Thank you, Ron.
Wednesday.
Okay, so now we are moving along to item J4, update on recreation programming.
Yes. So a lot is going on, obviously, with schools being in, students going back to school, summer coming up, just a lot of activity. So tonight we have with us Shannon Sneed, our recreation coordinator. She is responsible for so many things, coordinating programs, staffing, so many things. And she'll end her presentation tonight by demonstrating a new web-based registration program. So I think most of you who have signed up for programs have actually had to go to the Artesia Community Services building or office to pay for programming. There's so many things you can do now. It's made life a lot easier for staff, for community, for those who teach classes. And then we'll also ask Shannon just to give us an update of where we are on programming, including summer. So Shannon, you could take yourself off of mute. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Go ahead and there's so many things to update the commission with, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good evening. I'm happy to be here. Like Ms. Barb Feinstein said, I love recreation. I've been in the field for many, many years. And I've been with the city for a long time too. So I'm excited to report what we've got going on. I can start with our rec club study and play program. We started that in September. When COVID hit, we normally have the after school program on campus, but the school district said that's not going to happen. So parents are out there, needed something for their kids from all day long. So we opened a program from 8 to 4 at our city locations. We were not on campus after school. So we transitioned to our city locations. The senior centers were shut down. So it's a perfect opportunity to set up a program there. So we had our program at Anderson Park, Perry Park, and Veterans Park. And of course, we were limited on enrollment. So we only had 12 kids at each site with 2 staff. So we started small, but we had to be there all day with them with the remote learning. The average cost is around $180 a week for the first child, $160 for the second. We went as low as we could go to meet our costs and not lose money, but we also really didn't make money either to provide the service for the community. That started in September, and we just closed that down just before spring break. And we had, I think, 8 days to transition into our after-school program, but we're not on campus. So we continue our programs at our city facilities, our city locations after school. The kids get out just before 1 o'clock. And so we're trying to capture as many as we can. Walking, there are 3 schools that we're not able to take care of. That's Bernie, Jefferson, and Borough. And so those families, those parents know that they have to drop their kids off at our facilities. The other locations we walk the kids from are Toledo, Alta Vista, Washington, Madison, and Lincoln. And Lincoln and Alta Vista are pretty much next door. So we just have to walk them across the street. And I was listening to your talk about the Alta Vista location. We just have to go from the school to the tennis court community center with those kids. And the Lincoln kids go to the Anderson facility. Our Toledo kids go to Wilderness Park. And our Washington, Madison, and Bernie kids go to Perry Park Teen Center and the senior building. And then Jefferson and Borough, they get dropped off wherever their families want to drop them off at. Some of them are carpooling. So that started yesterday, and that program will run till the end of the school year, June 10th. We lowered the cost for that. It's instead of 8 hours a day, it's 5 hours a day, and we dropped that down to $130 for the first child and $120 for the second. So, and we still have a couple of openings, but we're pretty much sold out. And again, our numbers are small because of the protocols that we have to follow. We have a 14 kids to 2 staff ratio. One of the staff cleans and the other one works with the kids. So they each have their own duties. And that's pretty much how we operate throughout the day. We had that going on for the community. And we're looking to expand. Our biggest challenge right now is staffing, getting staff on board, getting them back. And as we expand to more programs, we can't do it until we have the staff, and we have to make sure they're processed and they're trained, and they go through orientation. So that's going to be a couple more weeks before we can open more sites for those families that need it. So that's what we have going on now. And then we're planning for our future. The summer camps are coming. And also we have classes going on. We have our spring newsletter with more classes opening up. A lot of them are outside. All of our tennis classes are full. So a lot of the programming we have right now for our classes are outdoors. The order is changing as we speak, but just to keep things consistent, we won't switch into indoor programming until the summer. And at that time, we can look and see where we're at and provide classes that are inside as well. Okay. Then the summer camps, we have 8 different camps that we're going to provide from the city alone. And those will be open at all of our facilities that we have. And again, we have to follow the guidelines of 14 kids to 2 staff. And we have Brit West soccer coming back. We have a dance camp. We have Perfect Day surf camp coming back, skate dogs, Lego camp, and sport ball. And they're all pretty much outside. With the camps that I have inside, we do follow the day camp protocols for that, as well as what goes on with the school guidelines, just to make sure that with our kids indoor, we're being extra safe. And I think that's all I have for programming. You know, the camp registration will start this Monday. And I'm almost done with the camp guide. It'll be posted to our website. A lot of the stuff that I'm talking about can be found on our website at redondo.org/classes, /after school, and /camps. So we post that all on the website. And then I can go ahead and go into the rec track right now. Okay. I'm going to try and share my screen. And basically, I'm going to show you what people see as they visit the website to register. So think you guys can see that, correct?
No, we don't.
No?
No.
Can you see my screen?
No. Mm-mm.
No?
No. There you go.
Okay, I just had to click it one more time. All right, this is what we use on the back end. What the customers will see is this splash page. This is what they come to. And I'm still in the process of setting this up. And I also have this whole design will shift when we're out of COVID, and I'll have a lot more pictures, a lot more to choose from. But because we're in COVID, we're kind of limited on some of the classes we can offer. So if you were to go for a search, you can click on the home button. It'll take you, maybe I need to sign in, or here. If you go to the search button, it'll take you to where our classes are. And then you can toggle on the side here. You can filter out things you want to look for. Let's say I want to look for classes for an 8-year-old. I can do a search, and then it'll populate all the classes we have and break open into more sections specific to that class that we offer. And if you go into that, it breaks it out even to more information. It'll tell you when the dates, the times, of where to meet. I even put in a feature where you can click on the map. You can click on the location and it'll pull up a map for the customers so they could find the locations of where their classes are. So that's basically how you break into the activities when you want to find things. You can also go to the boxes and click on them, and they'll take you right into those sections for our classes. Let's see, what else do we have? We have tennis. Tennis has, like I said, been really popular. You can see that these are all the tennis classes we have. So that's our recreation software. And then just people, when they sign in, they just click on this. And if they don't have an account, you're brand new, you just click on this, and then it captures all your information as a new client. For me, if I were to sign in, it should look like okay, and then so the reason why I brought the screen up is if I click here, you have so much more. This is stuff that we were doing in the office. Now the customers can go and get this information themselves. They can go get their history of what they purchased. So when I did a test, I signed up for this class, so they can go in and get this information all by themselves without us having to do it. They can upload documents, and so we have waivers that we require for our classes, and they could upload these to their household at any time. So it's a lot of self-serve opportunities here for them. They can go in and change their password. So all that stuff's here for them. Once they become a client, they're able to access all this. And a lot of the stuff that we do for clients is the tax information. It's the tax time. They can go in and get their own tax statements. So we can tell them how to do that. The other thing that we can do, before we had people come in, they had to reserve a moon bounce in person. And we have this system now where they can go in and they can pick what day they want, and they can pick the location. We have 2 locations where they can do moon bounces. They can reserve the moon bounce. So we have that set up. It's not active yet because we're still working on the signature process and the verification process. So I just launched this program about a month ago. So it's brand new. And so I'm rolling things out in phases. We're, being in COVID, not all the staff are here. So we just have to do it in bits and pieces as we go. So that's where we're at. You can do the tennis courts. We're going to have tennis court memberships and reservations available. We're going to have sailing memberships and reservations. And there's a lot, the software has a lot of capabilities. Some things we don't do online are reservations for facilities. So that's going to change. We'll be able to do reservations online. The adult sport leagues, we can register teams. They had to do that in person before. And bus passes are all in person, and we're going to switch that over to online as well. So there's a lot of Seaside Lagoon memberships and passes. You can transfer that. Before you just had to pay at the gate, but now we have a system where they can pay in the class, the RecTrack software. So, and it's just, like I said, it's brand new. We just launched it March 15th. And we did a soft launch with our spring classes and also our rec club programs and our after school programs. So we're just getting ready. Like I said, on Monday, all the camp information will be added to this, and we'll start registration on Monday for camps. And that's it.
Well, Shannon and her team have done an amazing job. If you have had to go to the Artesia office to pay or to request documents, you'll find that this is huge improvement and so much easier for the community. Does anyone have any questions for Shannon, whether it's programming or RecTrack?
I believe Commissioner Arata has her hand up.
Oh, I didn't lower my hand, but I was going to say it's fantastic. You've done a great job. It's so nice to see that these resources are available just at the click of a computer to make it so efficient for parents that work. It's going to be so convenient. For my kids, I used to have to go down and do it in person, and sometimes it was hard. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's great.
Thank you. And I am excited I run the after school program, and I have over 950 kids every month having to collect their payments. It's quite challenging, and having this system, we're able to automate that and collect all the paperwork online and not have them come in. So I'm glad, the parents probably love it too. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It's fantastic.
Commissioner McCauley?
Yes, I thank you again, Shannon. I think the online stuff is awesome. I remember using the Rec Web to do classes. Is this like to build upon or the next level from the Rec Web or the other software?
It's a brand new software.
The whole brand new software?
Yeah, we had to get rid of class. It was unsupported in 2017.
All right.
It's unstable on our web browser. People would not really be able to register. We were telling them to call in for the past year, and the timing was horrible because of COVID. So people had to call in. So
right. Yeah, no, I think the online is definitely the way to go, especially with the payments. I imagine that makes things a lot easier. So I do appreciate that as a user of the service as well with the kids. I will also, I just am curious, does this involve permitting for fields? Like if I wanted to get a permit to use a specific location, or is that done in another way?
It can be used that way. We do have a permissions option so that you can go in and reserve the field, fill out the permit, and then it has an approval process.
Okay.
So like if it involves Rob Pierce, he would get the alert that this permit needs approval, and then he would check all the paperwork, and then he would respond to the customer. And so there would be like a little gateway in between.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a full on, hey, you got a permit. There would be an approval process with it.
Well, that's cool. That's a big help too.
Shannon, is that a current option or a future option?
It's current, but I need to be the one that programs it. So when I have time, that's, like I said, I'm phasing things in. It's basically me that's doing all the work for the software. And it's extremely busy time with the schools going in person learning. And we only had an 8-day notice to shift our programming. And then we have summer camps coming. So when I do have some more time, and it is something new, so I want to make sure that when we do this online, we capture all the information we need. There's no loopholes. So it probably won't happen until about September or so.
Well, that's great to hear, because I think that'll be a big help for efficiency in finding those gaps in the fields and whatnot where they can be utilized. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And the tennis courts, just to mention, you have to go in person and reserve a court. The system will have 8 courts in the system that you could pick your court and reserve it. So then you could do your reservation online. You don't have to go into the facility.
Well, that's good, especially for COVID.
All right.
Is there anyone else? I have something. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us. I think that the website is amazing. I actually used it last night.
Oh, good.
My son up for gymnastics outdoors at Franklin Park today. And there were, just out of coincidence, some concerns from that class that kind of just made me realize that this is something I should probably bring up. In that class, there were like 17 kids to one instructor outdoors, and he didn't take attendance. So I'm not trying to throw the instructor under a bus at all. He was great and doing his best.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that moving forward, because a bunch of the parents were sort of freaking out about it, just that, attendance is taken regularly, and it just was hard for one instructor to do gymnastics instruction for that many children between 4 and 7. So I just thought, while we're here, I might as well bring that to your attention, because otherwise it was going to be a referral to staff.
Yeah. And I'm glad right as you're speaking, I'm checking, because 17 sounds a lot. Like we have those numbers. So at the back of my mind, I think he's combining classes, and so I'll have to talk to him about that, because we were clear on the COVID protocols with them before starting.
Yeah, and I can tell you as a positive, though, with every negative, I like to bring a positive. Everybody was in a mask, every single child there, and all the parents, and it was a park, and there's terrible signage about that at our parks. And so it was just really, really positive as far as, everybody following the rules and such. But I do think that maybe people were at the wrong class, or he didn't take it. So, there was something kind of weird going on.
So for our outdoor classes, we're allowed to have 15. And I'm looking at his class. There's 15, but not 17 is not allowed.
Yeah. So and then afterwards, he was trying to divide people into 2 groups and trying to quickly tell certain people to come at 2 and other people to come at 3. And knowing what I do about the way you guys work, I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do that informally, because you should go through the system, because people are going to get confused. And so just a heads up on that, because I just know that that's not protocol. So
right. So I'll definitely follow through. I mean, I'm excited that we had 15 sign up. I didn't think that we had that many in the numbers, but definitely I'll have a conversation with Michi. It's his first time doing a gymnastics class for us. He normally does the samurai karate. He does do that sort of instruction at his studio. So
yeah, no, and it was, I was really impressed and really pleased to see how many people turned out. It was really, it was too much, but at the same time, I was so happy to see that people are signing up and coming out and wanting to take these classes. So
yeah,
that's really, really
definitely follow through with them.
Yeah, just because I know you guys have such strict rules to follow because of COVID. So
yeah,
we do. I know, but great. It's just incredible. It was so easy to use, just from a user perspective. So
okay, good.
So thank you so much.
Right. Any other questions for Shannon? I made her stay at the office until 9 o'clock.
It's okay. I was working on a camps guide, which should be posted in about an hour. People are just chomping at the bit
for summer.
camps, yeah.
When did the summer program start, Shannon?
The kids get out of school June 10th. The summer programming starts June 14th. Yeah, so we're starting with our camps that we did last year during COVID. We were able to run 5 weeks of camps, kind of like this, but we did it, followed all the protocol, and knock on wood, since we've opened last summer, everything has ran, staff do a great job. Parents do a pretty good job too, being responsible with their kids. And so we've had a pretty good run at it. So we're going to start our summer the same way we finished, but it's July 12th, we're going to bump it up and add some specialty camps. We'll still be following protocols for COVID, but we're going to be adding field trips and stuff like that where they walk. There's no bus trips. It's too complicated right now for bus trips. So
I've had a few inquiries about your basketball camp, which was super popular. Is that running? Did I hear you mention that one?
we're going to do Quirky, I think, has retired. Last time when he told me he retired, but then he's like, well, I might come back. So we're doing a sports camp starting July 12th for 4 weeks. If Quirky doesn't return, it will be Austin. He's the Redondo High School JV coach. He'll be doing it at Perry Park. Yeah. So if we don't get Quirky back, we'll have Austin, who used to work with Quirky anyway. So he'll just run it the same way.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for the report and for all the work you've been doing on the programming. I'm sure everyone is, both in the office and the community, are thankful for your efforts. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you again. Okay, guys. That was awesome. So we're going to move along to J5, the director's report.
Yes, last item. So to continue with Shannon, just a few information, a little bit of information on reopenings. So the libraries, both libraries, will open this coming Monday, April 19th. The community services office on Artesia will start back with passports on May 3. So the office will have a phased approach to reopening. It chose passports to go first, just strictly based on community feedback. It's been amazing. I think people want to start traveling, but I think also people would typically get their passports in the spring so they could travel during the summer in normal times, right? So there have been days where we get 9 phone calls because so many different places have closed down. And so people are really wanting their passports, but we're doing it very slowly, extended appointment times, only one family in the lobby at a time. We'll have a lobby attendant to, make sure people are wearing masks and, that they could, have hand sanitizers. So we want people, our guests, to feel comfortable, but also the employees as well. So we're and then after that, we'll have different divisions open up to the public, but that will be in the future. In terms of the facilities, aviation gym is still closed. Per the LA County protocol, will open when we hit yellow. So yellow will allow for youth and adults basketball and volleyball, and also allow Northrop Grumman to start back on their lunchtime program. RV Pack is not yet open. We really only do filming once in a while. I think we'll start seeing some change in protocol for indoor activities, but we do see that the next step will be virtual performances, which we've been doing, right kind of before COVID. And it's very controlled, but people still get to, perform on the stage and have limited family in the audience, and that works well. The basketball hoops are have been reinstalled. If you're wondering, people were really antsy to get the outdoor basketball hoops up. So that's been done. Dogs and parks. So the departments, council, are aware of some of the issues with dogs and parks. So if you recall, I think the pilot program was approved in September, and then the ordinance went into effect the next month in October. And at the time, council said, hey, come back in a year to kind of report back. Because of some of the concerns occurring with the dogs and parks, the council has asked that a report come back to them earlier. So probably May or June. So they won't wait until October, just to kind of see where we are on that. The recruitment of the community service director is in its final stages. So, we'll know about that new person soon. The small hand launch was reinstalled at the end of March at the harbor. The one item that I did not put on the agenda tonight wasn't forgotten, but it was the follow-up on the poor park conditions. And I realized that it's going to take longer than 2 months to take care of some of those items. So we won't forget about it. We'll bring it back at the appropriate time. So I wanted to at least mention that. RFPs are still being worked on for the skate parks and the Dominguez play area. Morel Historical House, if you've driven by, it's a nice bright roof. It's been replaced and completed by Public Works. So to talk about a few things from recent council meeting items, all very interesting. So March 9, we took a community garden item to council. And again, at that time, the request was, please bring the presentation that was given to the Recreation Parks Commission to council. So that was done. And then the council's request at that time, at that particular meeting, was for staff to go out and look at various potential locations for community gardens. The item then came back, was it just last night? It was just last night. And it changed a little bit in terms of now, staff will work with the South Bay Parkland Conservancy to further develop the Alta Vista location. But there will still also be what we call a budget response report that will be presented to council during the budget process on just on other locations. So I had a really great day one day. You're always in the office, sitting in front of a computer, and I was able to go with Ted and our deputy public works to all these different locations. It was a beautiful day, and it was nice to visit some parks and potential areas. So that will be a formal report to council during budget season. So that's kind of the community garden. Also on March 9, council did accept the Department of Boating and Waterways Aquatic Center grant. This is something that John LaRock probably has talked to you about every year. It's a little shy of $20,000, but it does help us to provide scholarships to families for sailing programs. And also, as if any of you own a boat or know a boat owner, it costs a lot of money to maintain boats. So that grant money also helps to offset costs for the city. Last night, we also talked about fireworks. So it's kind of a last minute discussion, but things are just now opening up, right? We're in orange. The state is saying, hey, maybe by mid-June, we're going to open up, a little bit more. So we did want to give council an opportunity to weigh in on fireworks. So they were given multiple options: skipping another year, a land-based fireworks from the harbor that would take place near, behind by the small hand launch. That's an interesting idea also for cost because it doesn't involve large cost. And then also the other options are, have it in the harbor on a barge with an event at Seaside Lagoon or without. So after much discussion, there's actually more work for staff to do. There's an opportunity to possibly work with the Riviera Village Association and they've been interested in having a fireworks location, more towards their area than, by Seaside Lagoon. So I'll be looking into that. So it is possible that we will see fireworks for July. And then also that leads us to Seaside Lagoon. What do we do with Seaside Lagoon? I think you know the challenges of Seaside Lagoon and getting it ready every summer. But the council voted to have a season. It is going to be modified, obviously, because it usually opens Memorial Day. The season is usually Memorial Day to Labor Day, which is about 101 days. So we're getting a little later start again because, we didn't think about Seaside Lagoon for a while just because of COVID restrictions. So our target date is June 15. And the end date is still to be determined. I think council's thinking the normal end of summer, which is Labor Day. But also if there is a beach life festival, that may affect that end date because obviously they're going to use Seaside Lagoon as part of their event. So a lot of things, but all, very positive, assuming that, everyone's good and, the COVID numbers and vaccination numbers continue onward. So might have some things to celebrate this summer. So and that's kind of what I have, just hot off the press, some of this information. So
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Escandrillas.
Yeah, you indicated that the council is asking for, I guess, an update concerning dogs in the park. Mm-hmm. How is that going to be assessed or evaluated? Aside or even in addition to the concerns that the individual at the beginning of the meeting brought up about Zuliger Park, I'm also seeing on Nextdoor quite a bit of people that are really, really concerned about dogs in the park. They're concerned, actually, they've expressed it on Nextdoor concerning dogs in parkettes and urinating on playground equipment. Mm-hmm. I personally am in a park in the city at least 6 days a week, if not sometimes 7 days. And I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 dogs, and I've seen it up to 15 dogs every day are running loose because of people letting them go. I've also seen, and I'm also aware of 5 people who every morning utilize Alta Vista baseball fields as their own dog park as well. And so I'm kind of aware that again, I'm not a big fan of over policing and utilizing the police and such, but I'm just kind of curious as to what input is going to be done or who's going to spearhead that analysis or survey.
The analysis will come from community services, and it will be obviously talking to, gathering information. I've been keeping a file of emails. Obviously many of them are forwarded to us from our council members. We'll, talk to the police department, the parks folks, because they're in the parks working, and whether it's their direct observation or people coming to them to complain. So it's research and it's gathering information and put into a report form and provided to council.
So then should we refer people to you or to staff if they have a concern about this? So to ensure that, again, it's not coming back secondhand, if both the pros and cons of the dogs in the park.
That's true. I mean, just like anything, right? You tend to hear only about the negative or the complaints. So they could go ahead and just, they could send me an email. That's fine. Like I said, I'm just compiling information. So
Again, because there was a pretty long string on the next door concerning that.
yeah.
Especially in the parkettes, which is totally different from, say, for example, my observation at Dominguez Park of all the dogs that are running in and out, as well as seeing the dogs in the ball fields. And in fact, I saw somebody having a dog training class in the ball field at Dominguez Park over the weekend, which I don't think is really good for the Little League that are trying to clean everything up and maintain their area.
Right.
So, okay, just curious to see how you want to have that happen.
Yeah. It's just going to be a compilation of information and talking to different departments and people. And so, again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Commissioner McCauley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Lori, a few years ago, the state passed the Parks Bond Initiative, and LA County created the LA County Regional Park and Open Space District. Are you familiar with that district in any way?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so
What is your question?
So my question is, I know that Redondo Beach has some park priorities that are on the list of inventory and possible county funded projects. One of them in particular was at Alta Vista Park from a few years ago about turfing the Julia side of the field. And I understand that the bond money to be set aside for these projects throughout the county, they have a representative from each city that is like a liaison for the bond committee or the LA County Regional Park and Open Space District. And I was just curious as to, do we have anybody who's talking to them to advocate for the city of Redondo Beach? And if not, is there somebody who would do that?
Commissioner McCauley, tell me again the name of it's LA County Regional
Park and Open Space District.
Open Space District.
And I can forward you some of the information
Okay.
that I have gotten. Just because it just seems like an opportunity that somebody, either us as a commission or somebody at the city, should be advocating to see that money, because the money is approved from the bond and it is being spent gradually. And I think they're doing a new round of spending. And I was just hoping that we could kind of get somebody speaking up for our city.
You think it was went into effect a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, there was a state bond. I don't know if you're familiar with, there was a statewide bond initiative for parks. And then LA County got their share of it, I guess. Unless it was a LA County bond, I could be mistaken.
Okay.
And but I know it's coming from LA County that they are doing projects, and there's a priority list. And the priority list for projects from Redondo Beach, we did submit, I recall, because I was involved with John LaRocque at that time, where there was a couple of projects submitted on behalf of the city of Redondo Beach.
Okay. All right. No, any information?
For Measure A at all? Is that
I'm
ringing
sorry?
a bell? Measure A funding or
I
projects
think,
before?
I think it was the big one. I think it was a state bond initiative, and that's where the money came from. But the money now is designated through the county, and the county is going around fixing up parks through grants. And so we would need to write grants to get money to fund the projects. And,
okay. You'd have to submit grants.
So yeah, and it seems like the submitting of the grants is a little tricky, and I was wondering who facilitates that, who can help that, or is that something that this commission would do?
Okay. If you would send me some information that I can, either start researching or pass along.
Definitely.
Okay. We covered a lot of information. I hope it was interesting. It's always nice to have guests, so you don't just listen to the director, in my case, interim director. I guess, out of all of this, do you have, just as a reminder, Chair, is there anything of interest that you want agendized for next meeting? Because right now you'd probably have another update on, reopenings, to give that some thought. You as a group have to, vote on anything on the agenda. Is there anything else? Anything?
I guess we should move to K, so member items and referrals to staff. Is that where we are?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have anything of that nature?
I've been getting a lot of suggestions from the community to suggest an earth slide in Wilderness Park, like the kind of slide they have at Hermosa. What is it? South Park in Hermosa.
It's like concrete sort of rock.
The concrete earth slide on one of the hilltops in Wilderness Park and different things like that. I know that it has been presented a lot, and it was an idea that could be a public art commission collaboration as well, if it's an installation. And so I know that there's possibilities, other types of collaborations, I guess we could think about, but I don't know if that's what kind of suggestion that would be, as far as if that's something that we could think about. Updating our parks with amenities like that, not necessarily a full-on playground like we do a lot in different parks, but figuring out an amenity like that. So that's one idea.
Oh, that's great. I spend a lot of time at Wilderness Park. It's cool to think of something like that, or interesting rather, to think of something like that. It wouldn't have occurred to me. So, does anyone have anything else?
Could I make a motion to add to the agenda for either myself or Lori to report back on the grant information or what we learn between now and then, just so it's on the agenda, just in case. And then if there's nothing there, we just say there's nothing there. But if we learn anything that's relevant for us, does that make sense?
And great opportunities for parks.
Just maybe, to report back, either myself or Lori together, on any information we learn. So the agenda item would be learning about the progress of the county grants for Redondo Beach projects.
Does someone want to second that, or do we second that? Okay.
You should vote on it to put it on the agenda.
Okay. Then we should do a roll call.
Yes. Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbarigos.
Aye.
Commissioner Almeida.
Aye.
Commissioner Arata.
Aye.
Commissioner Escontrias.
Aye.
And Chair Super.
Aye.
Okay. That would be an interesting one. See what opportunities are out there.
Yes.
Great. I have a couple things if everyone else is done. I don't want to. Is everyone else okay? The thing, I don't think we need to make a motion for this, but maybe in the director's report, Lori, you could give us an update on what's happening with pickleball. I've seen so many different amazing, creative ways that people are playing pickleball in parkettes, and especially during COVID, just so that they can play their favorite game. And I know that it went to council, and I kind of lost track of where it was in process, and I just wanted to see if just get a better understanding of where we are.
Yeah, the next meeting I will be able to tell you that. The one thing I will mention is that there are no guarantees, but the plan is to submit a request for capital improvement project funds for a siting study for pickleball, because I think there are, very specific court requirements, and probably, I think if I recall, the pickleball item was to convert some tennis courts into pickleball. And of course, people love their tennis too. So I know John had some ideas of locations, and so that's probably, I did put in a report for that. So
Great. Okay.
hopefully it will go, we compile all the capital improvement project requests, and then it will go to, council at a certain time. But we do know that type of study should be done.
Awesome. Okay. And then the last thing is just, I was up till 1 a.m. with you last night.
Yes.
And so what I'm curious about the community garden that we sent a while back is just this idea that was visited about, suggested about finding green space or open space in each district to potentially find space for mini offshoot community gardens. That was an idea that came up at the council meeting last night. And I'm sort of curious if we could get some direction on maybe how we could participate in that as a commission, exploring the idea of maybe, doing a little recon ourselves, or forming some sort of subcommittee of trying to figure out perhaps different spaces where we might be able to, brainstorm ways to bring more of that into each of our own communities. So I don't know really, again, if that needs to be an agenda item, because I don't really have any cohesive thoughts on it, but just that essentially that I would love us to be looped into the discussion if council gets to the place where they're exploring that. Because I think that we all represent a very diverse part of, I think we're from many different districts, and each of us has our own ability to sort of explore where we might be able to find community garden space.
Okay, make a note of that.
Yeah.
The one thing I should mention is this is likely my last meeting with you. So, but I will make sure that everything's set for the next agenda. So,
maybe just note that perhaps we could still be part of the discussion about
Okay.
I saw it occurred to me because I saw a bunch of people planting in a little triangular green space area in my district today. That's it's actually city property, and I thought, wow. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but it was kind of cool to see.
Creative.
Yeah. So that was the only reason why it occurred to me, like, oh wow, we could actually kind of formalize that a little bit,
Okay.
or at least be part of the discussion about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll make a note of that.
Lori, is there any date or any idea of when we will actually be having these meetings in person?
No, so I think some cities have started in-person meetings. We're fairly conservative with, when to start doing that. But also, I don't know, because we're finishing up the remodel in the council chambers. So when you return to the council chambers, it's going to be higher tech. You'll have your screens embedded in the dais, and bigger, better electronics. I think you'll be happy with that, but I don't have a date.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. If that's all, is that all or? All right, then we're going to keep adjourning the meeting. The next meeting of the Redondo Beach Rec and Parks Commission will be held at 7 p.m. on June 9th, 2021 via Zoom.
All right. Who knows? Maybe that's your last Zoom meeting. All right, everyone.
Right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Good night.